everybody, and thank you for having me here. I know that most of the talks today have been in Russian, so bear with me, I cannot speak Russian, so I'll have to speak in English. Just a very short introduction about myself, so you know who I am and what I'm doing in my day-to-day job. I'm a computer engineer. I've been working as a software developer for about 20 years, so I know quite some about software development. Right now, I'm not working as a developer, I'm working as a manager at Toptal. And what Toptal does is it connects developers, talents, both in development, design, and finance, with clients from all over the world. And I want to stress this all over the world because it is a big part of what we're going to talk about today. There is one thing that has changed a lot in the last few years about remote companies. And when I say remote, I don't necessarily mean people that work from home, but in general companies that work with clients that are not in the same city, and maybe companies that have their offices and just provide services to other companies. Traditionally, the way that software development or IT companies have presented themselves to clients has been that of a black box service. You have a project manager, somebody that is facing the client and interacts with the client. And behind him, there are a lot of developers, a lot of product managers, team leaders, and what you deliver normally is a product. And that is pretty much what has been done for a lot of years. It has worked quite well, especially because the traditional way of developing software was to have, in a very waterfall process, requirements defined that passed along to some outsourcing company, and you would provide that. As I'm pretty sure all of you know, software development has changed a lot, especially we're talking about agile development, and the idea of having requirements defined at the very beginning and then passed over to another company doesn't really work. This means that even this model doesn't work anymore. You cannot have a single person interacting with clients and then everyone else just interacting with that person. It becomes a big bottleneck and a very tight one. It just defeats all the purpose of Agile. So I'm going to talk from my experience. What I do at Toptal specifically is I lead a team that puts the clients and developers in touch. So while I don't run a service company, at the same time I know a lot about putting people from different countries in the world in contact with clients. So here's my perspective. I hope that you will find it helpful. So the way that I see things is that companies now should try not to offer software, not to offer services, but to offer people, to offer what we call agile talent, to offer knowledge workers. So in the moment that you interact with a client and you want to offer them, okay, we can do this for you, but you're not just going to tell me, yes, we can develop for you your IT system, your website, or your app, or whatever, or your billing system, whatever it is, but we can offer you these people. We can offer you our expertise. So there is a shift from offering services to offering knowledge that is strictly connected with the people that you work with. As you can understand, this doesn't work at all with the idea that you have a single person interacting with the client. It means that all of your team has to be interacting with the client, which creates a lot of challenges. Challenges that we are going to talk about in a second. One of the things that I think is super important, again, is about your skills. You have to build your team in a way that it can present value to your clients. And your portfolio will not only be the services that you have developed, but it will be the people that are working with you. It will be your team. Again, this is really important because there is a lot of pride, and I would say even rightly so, in offering your company, in having my company has built this, our company built that, and we have completed that project, which is great, but we need to make a bit of a shift in the sense of saying, it's not my company, my label that has built that, but it's my people that have built that, which requires also being a bit less selfish than in the traditional model. We have to think a bit less about ourselves and a bit more about our team and what we're offering to our clients. So one thing that is super important is, at least for me, you have to think that your team will work with the client as a single team, and you have to do everything that you can to make this happen. Let me explain why this is important. I work mostly with US clients. Most of our clients are from the United States, and there is always a lot of concern. Like the first question that I would say at least half of the client ask is, do you have people in the United States? Or I prefer a developer from the United States. I am Italian, and I know that that is not a problem. I know that I can work as well as a developer from the United States. But why is that clients always want to work with people from the United States? It's because they feel friction. Whenever they have experiences with people from other countries, they feel friction. And I'm taking the United States as an example just because it's where most of our clients are, but you can consider that for any country that is not yours. They feel friction in a lot of little things. If they have a previous experience with working with somebody from another part of the world, they may remain with this feeling that something was not quite as smooth as working with local people. So let's see, where we can find these places where there is friction and how we can solve them. So one of the first things I was saying is introduce your team. Make sure that you are not acting as a bottleneck, that you're not acting as somebody that will control everything, but let your people work with the client. Let your people be part of the client's team. Make sure that they know each other, that they are in the same chats, that they have the same water cooler chats, that they have the same channels where they post pictures about cats. And it's important. It's important because this will create a much tighter connection and will give the experience to your clients that are somewhere else in the world that you are a single team. They will forget about the distance. Another thing that is very important to focus on is the fact that you will be working from people from all over the world, which means different cultures. This is one of my big topics. I like to talk about culture because I think that the biggest thing that I have learned in more than 3 years of Toptal is working with people literally from everywhere in the world. My team ranges from Romania to Colombia, and they have obviously different languages, different ways of thinking, and I particularly enjoy this. I love traveling, and I have met people from almost all countries of Europe and a lot of countries from South America or the United States. So for me, it's really enriching working with people from all over the world, but it's challenging. It's something that one has to learn. It's a skill to be learned. And how do you learn this skill without changing your identity? Because it would be simple to say, okay, you want to work with people from the United Kingdom, good, behave like people from the United Kingdom, like a person from the United Kingdom, behave like a Londoner. Or you want to work with people in San Francisco, then learn how to behave and talk and think and write like somebody from San Francisco. I don't think that's right. There was a time in my life where I thought, oh, I don't like my Italian accent when I speak in English, and now I will study to get a very British, posh English accent like from London. After a while, I realized, why should I do that? Like, is it wrong to have an Italian accent? As long as people understand me. As long as my communication is clear, that's cool. I love being Italian, I'm proud. And I think that everybody should be proud. So it's not about negating your identity, you should never do that, but it's how to make things work, how to find a common ground. And there were a lot of tricky aspects in finding a common ground. One that I liked a lot, and so this is about my first experience with working with a team from Ukraine. It was my second job at Toptal. And I was remote, the company was in San Francisco, there was a team in Ukraine. Again, just the example that I was mentioning, so a company that is a service company, they have like 30 developers, but they were working very closely with the team in San Francisco. So I spoke with the developer in Ukraine, and I was like, oh yeah, sorry, so I was wondering, is there any chance that you know how to add an SSH thing? And his answer was, yes. Okay, and second time, I asked again in a very Italian, long-winded way. I started asking all my questions, voila, and the answer was no. Okay, so I thought, okay, this guy doesn't really like working with me. Like, he's really, I don't know. So I'll say it in a polite way, I thought he was always annoyed with me. It took me weeks to realize that's the way he spoke. That was normal. That was a normal way of communicating. He was not angry at me. He didn't think I was stupid. He didn't think my questions were stupid. It was normal. It was just his way of communicating. And this may sound silly, but actually it brings me to a very important point. When you speak with a client from someplace else, no matter if your communication is going to be mostly digital, via chats, via email, like it happens in the remote world, but your first impact is going to be when you speak with somebody. And especially if you introduce your team, especially because of this new challenge of having your people work with the other people, everybody has to understand how to communicate. And I'm not saying only your people have to understand the client. No, everybody. I'm saying even that client companies have to be ready to work with talents from all over the world. It is very interesting, for instance, to work with people from Asia. Presents a completely different challenge in communication. Or people from India. The way that they say something, the way that you ask something is going to be different. And it's a whole new set of skills to be learned. So if there is anything that you can invest in making your people better, usually developers are great at learning skills by themselves. You give them a Pluralsight subscription and they will just spend all their nights studying a new technology. If something is cool, they will go after it. But they will not spend time perfecting their communication skills. While they are extremely important, especially when you face the international market. And another thing that is super important is always in the same ballpark is about written communication. After the first impact, after you have this first interaction which happens over the phone, you're going to have a lot of written communication, chats, emails, whatever it is. Knowing how to write those emails is something that will, again, improve the perception that somebody on the other side of the world has about you. In my team, I usually I hire only engineers, and then I make them into people that are client-facing. Which is not easy, I tell you. It takes me about 6 months to a year to get somebody that has always been a developer to be an excellent client-facing person. And one of the things that I have to do is learn how to communicate better in a written form. And when I say better, I'm not talking about grammar, which is important. I'm not talking just about punctuation and all of that. I'm talking about spend 5 minutes of your time to write a 3-line summary so that the person on the other side will spend only 10 seconds reading it and understanding it. Because one thing that, especially in this remote world, the way that we experience it is we have an overload of information. We don't have time to read information. If information is confusing, if I see a paragraph that is 20 lines long, and it takes me time to read it and to understand and to gather context, I will have a negative impression. So for me, it's super important to teach my people, spend that time, make your message clearer, make your message better. And this is extremely important for developers. Before, at lunch, I was speaking with one of the attendees here at the conference. I'm not sure if he's around. And he was mentioning that he is teaching English here in Belarus. And what he was telling me, it's striking that people from Belarus in general, developers, or his students in general, have an excellent comprehension of English, but they lack in the production. So speaking, writing for them is more difficult, which takes us back to that simple yes or no as an answer. And this is something that made me think. We have a lot of developers for whom I had this kind of particular feedback from clients. His comprehension is an A. So grades in the United States go from B to E, I think, or F. So A is great. He understands everything. He never misunderstood one of my requirements. So even better than a lot of people that have very good English skills. but his grammar is a D. He doesn't know how to communicate. I don't know why this specific challenge happens more in these countries. In Italy, we're bad at everything. We don't understand, we don't speak, so that's, that's more equal, that's more even. But this is a particular trait that I noticed. So, usually developers understand everything perfectly, but they have a bit more of a problem in communicating. And again, while this is not a real detriment to the quality of the work that they will do, but it will give a bit of a different perception to the client on the other side. Because when they will be faced with a developer that is just a bit more communicative, maybe even not as great technical-wise, but is a bit more communicative, they will feel like, oh, but it's easier to communicate with this person, I have a better feeling. And in digital communication, we lack everything that is visual. Like, I'm looking at you guys now, and I see who is interested, I see maybe some smiles, so there is a lot of non-verbal communication. In digital form, you lose all of that, which means that the 20% that is left of the communication, because 80% they say is non-verbal, so the 20% that is left, you have to be perfect there. You have to give the best experience that you can on the other side. And this is something funny. When is Labor Day? Do you have Labor Day in Belarus? 1st of May. Perfect. It's 1st of May in Italy. It's 1st of May in France. 1st of May in South America. When is Labor Day in the United States? I don't know exactly when it is, but it's not May 1st. This is funny, but this creates problems every year. And let me explain why. I work for a US company. I am a remote worker, been working there 3 years and a half, everything is perfect. There comes May 1st. Everybody's working at the company. Why? Because the United States is a normal working day. There comes Easter Monday. People in the US are working. There comes Thanksgiving. Nobody's working. It happens on a Thursday, so even on Friday, usually, and not many meetings, usually things get cancelled because it's okay, they take basically the whole rest of the week. But the question is, what happens in my life, in my city, on Easter Monday and on Thanksgiving? So on Easter Monday, it's a spring, all of my friends and family are having fun, or going away, or having picnics, whatever it is. And I cannot go there because I'm working. What happens on Thanksgiving in my life? Nothing. People are working. And I have a day where I could be home. Well, I'm always at home, but I could be not working. But what's the use of that day in my life? No use. Or at least, not use that I could have. So, why is this important? It's important because it takes me to the point that you have to set expectations. When you think about culture, there are a lot of things that seem very normal, like given. You know, when is Christmas? Well, that's not the same day in Italy and in Russia. It doesn't happen on the same day. It is normal. I think you have 13 days at the beginning of January for Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. 10 days off. No? Only Russia. Okay, see, I'm failing even here. Okay. But it's normal, like everybody knows in Russia that there are 10 days off. So it is normal that the developer will just not show up for work for 10 days. And then the client calls me. I am the person that, gets all the big problems. Well, gets all, either to somebody on my team or to me directly. It's like, the developer all of a sudden says that he's going to be off for 10 days, but we have a deadline tomorrow. Okay? So, it may sound a bit silly again, but it is important to set expectations and to know your culture, your client's culture, and be able to set expectation. I suggest strongly that you don't work on Labor Day and you enjoy with your families. I suggest strongly that you take Easter Monday, that's what I did this year, and that you work on Thanksgiving, but just you have to set expectations before. These are all little challenges that may give a bad impression on the other side if you don't think ahead of them. You just have to think ahead of them and compensate so that on the other side you're always giving a very smooth experience, and also that you're not frustrated. Because what happens if you don't think ahead of these things is that you will get frustrated. Your people will get frustrated, and that's not ideal, obviously. So these are just a bit of the things that I have seen in my experience. I placed a few hundred developers with clients, most of them with great success, some of them not with enormous success, but most of them worked very well. And I just hope that this was useful for you.